Hello, folks. Welcome to Scratch the Surface. I'm EJ Scott. Today, my guest is Jerry Minor. I had a nice long talk with Jerry. Before I get into what we talked about, let me give myself some plugs. You can follow me on Twitter at EJ Scott and at EJ Podcast. Instagram, EJ Scott 1106. My website, ejscott.com. And there's a documentary about me called Running Blind, where I ran 12 marathons in 2012, blindfolded for charity. I did that because I'm losing my eyesight to an eye disease called choroideremia, and I'm always looking to raise awareness and get some attention for the cause. You can learn more at curechm.org or my website, ejscott.com. There you go. And you can find the documentary on iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Digital copies only. And it's for $2 or $3. You can rent it or buy it. And it's only 30 minutes long, so it's well worth your time and money. So go check that out. Okay, great. So Jerry, I've met Jerry a long time ago, a couple times through the improv world. And I haven't seen him in a long time, and I was really excited that he agreed to do my podcast because I think he's a hilarious guy, especially as an improviser. He's just so good. But I did not expect what I found when I was doing my research for him or even talking with him, and just the insane life that he's lived. He was raised as a Jehovas Witness. He's been shunned by Jehovas Witness. He hasn't talked to his mother in decades. He's done drugs and stuff with prostitutes, and I mean it's really wild. So we talk about all that. We get into all that. On top of we talk about Louis C.K. and what Louis C.K. has done, and how Jerry knew about that and has talked to Louis about it back when it happened. So there's that's a big reveal that we talk about. We talk about comedy and acting and stuff, but really I didn't get to most of my notes because all these things were coming up as we were talking. So it's a really fascinating interview. He's a fascinating guy and a really great guy. He's also a new father, and we talk about that. And I appreciated him coming out and spending some time with me. So enjoy my talk from July 5th, 2018 with Jerry Minor. Hi, Jerry.
How you doing, man?
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Thanks so much for being here.
Good to see you.
I don't know if we met like a million years ago.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And you did. Do you remember? I don't know.
I do remember you.
You do. I don't assume anybody remembers. You know what I mean? Like from 10 years ago or so.
Yes.
You remember me? It's
yes.
EJ.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. What you were gonna say?
No. I remember you from Second City, and actually, I've seen you in different places. I've seen you at I.O. and stuff. You didn't see me, and I even saw you at Comic-Con a couple of years ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was there.
Between New York or San Diego?
San Diego.
Yeah.
I was there doing something for a cartoon I was doing. And you were, I think we were in the same room. We were about to go on and do a panel. And you were with your girlfriend.
Right.
And she was about to do a panel. And there was a bunch of people there. And you were across the room.
Okay.
And so I couldn't be like, hey, it's me, And then we had people between, we had all these people between us and like handlers, and stuff, and people taking you around, it's like weird and awkward.
That's cool. That would have been cool to say hi to you then. That would have been funny if you just were like screaming at me across the room.
Right.
Like, oh, it's Jay Minor. Screaming at me. He really wants to say hi.
Yes. I saw you and a million other people too, so it's kind of like that during those
things are really weird because I've gone to a bunch of them now because of my girlfriend, and it's weird where they all work with each other, but maybe they haven't seen each other in a while or weeks or whatever. Then they all start getting in the same room, and there's very little like, oh, I gotta go say hi to everybody. Like nobody really does that. Do you notice that too? Like everybody just goes, feel like it's assumed
oh, there's someone over there.
Yeah, we know who that is.
Right.
You know, I've seen them a million times. I don't need to say hi again or anything. Yeah, I don't know. Right. It feels weird to me. I'm like, should I? Because I feel compelled because I know some of those people. I should go around and say hi to everybody.
I feel the same way too. Well, it's so massive. And there's so many people there, and I know like a lot of places, like you were with the True Blood contingent, and they were just like at that point in time, they were just getting taken around okay, here's your panel, sign these autographs, and then here.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in anything like that big, and it was like that for us. So I kind of feel like, with those things, you see people, but you're in these groups, and you can get lost really easy too. It's so crowded.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of pressure on you too, I guess, to feel like, oh, now I have to say hi to all these people or whatever,
Well, yeah, and then like you feel like you get out of the group, and then somebody will start talking to you, like some fan, then you're lost, So you just like kind of stick with the handlers, and they kind of like breeze you through that kind of stuff too, anyway, so people won't like bother you. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of feel like I'm, yeah.
Are you a nerd? Do you like San Diego Comic-Con?
I'm not a nerd.
You're too cool. You're pretty cool.
Well, I don't consider myself cool, but
I'm an improv nerd.
I consider myself not cool enough to be into that. I don't know enough about it. Every time I go, I'm like, oh, I know comic books. I'm like, no, I do not.
Yeah, some guys are like really. Even I'm pretty into it, but I talk to some people and I go, I'm a wannabe.
Oh yeah,
I'm a poser.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not into it that much.
Yeah. What are you into?
I mean, right now I just had a kid, so I'm really into that. That's my hobby.
Well, I'm on your Instagram, and you got a bunch of pictures and videos of your kid. Very adorable kid. I'm really young, like just a few weeks, months.
3 months.
3 months. Mm-hmm. So cute. What's his name? Mickey.
Mickey. Mm-hmm.
Who's that named after?
Michelangelo, the artist.
Oh, I was good. Is it weird that I immediately think of turtles?
Yes,
that's the nerd. That's the nerd.
Well, it's that too.
Why Michelangelo?
Just like the name. I did like the turtles. Yeah.
Not the artist.
And the artist, yeah, of course, he's obviously, very famous. Actually, Mickey was the first, and then I'm like, he can't have that's a nickname. That's not a real name.
Oh, okay.
And I always liked Michael, and really liked Michelangelo. Just liked the name.
It's kind of bad. Michael's pretty standard,
right?
There's a lot of Michaels out there.
A ton of Michaels.
Michelangelo.
Yeah, not a lot. No,
not so many. Which turtle is Michelangelo? Does he have the nunchucks?
He's kind of the leader. The staff. I feel like he had this. Did one of them have the size or the?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I can't remember.
Yeah. He'll figure.
I'm sure he'll know
in his lifetime.
Right.
Millions of people will tell him. Was your baby planned? Surprise?
Yes.
Cool.
It was planned. Yes.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And you've been married about 3 years or so?
2 years. 2 years. I got married in 2016.
2016. I see her on Instagram as well, and I believe she and I are Facebook friends.
Yes.
How'd you guys meet?
She was an actor from Chicago, so we just had a lot of mutual friends. Whole Second City, Chicago.
Is she an improviser, sketch person? Comedy?
She was. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, and she has become a film executive. So yeah, that's what she was doing before she had her.
What's she executing?
A film. She worked for a film company called Broad Green, which is now defunct, which went under. But they were upstart, made a few films in the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then they just went under.
Is she taking time off to be a mom and stuff?
Yeah.
She's doing that.
So they went under right around the time that she got pregnant. So it was like, for me, it was convenient. I'm like, oh, good. Don't have to worry about that, Because I was trying to figure out, like, I really prefer having somebody at home, and or right now I'm at home. I'm not working right now either, but it just worked out really well for us.
Yeah.
So we didn't even have to make the choice of who's going to work and who's going to be at home and stuff like that.
Has having the baby and the fantasies leading up to having the baby, have they matched up, or are you discovering things you didn't expect?
I'm pretty old, so I didn't have any.
48 or so, right?
Yeah, that's or so.
Thereabouts.
A little bit lower. Yeah. So for me, I mean, I have been a step parent before. I've been married before, a long time ago. I was really young, so I've had that experience a little bit. And I just didn't have any. I didn't have any fantasies about it. I kind of was realistic. I think both of us, neither one of us are spring chickens.
Yeah.
So we both were realistic about it, and we've waited, for a while to have children. So. I think we both knew what we were getting into. It's a lot more work than we thought.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just a lot. You're just on all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I have 3 dogs. Uh-huh. I feel like I'm on all the time.
Yes. Yeah. I get that feeling, yeah.
You were married once before. How young were you?
I was 21.
That's pretty young. Pretty young.
Pretty young, yeah.
And that was... You were a Jehovah's Witness, and that was just out of Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, just out of it, yeah. Which is one of the reasons I got married. Is because at that point in time in my life, I'd left the religion, but I was still, I think, trying to live that lifestyle. For me, what I was told, because I was kicked out of the religion, so I just told myself, well, I don't need to be in that organization to live a Christian, quote-unquote, lifestyle,
right?
Which is what they would be considered a Christian lifestyle. So I did pretty much what I would have done if I was still a Jehovah's Witness. I got married at a young age,
Right.
And I still
judged
tried
people.
I sure. I still tried to live a quote unquote clean life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that means like no smoking or drinking.
Yeah, smoking drugs or swearing and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
I tried to.
It's very hard these days,
right?
I'd say.
Yes.
That's interesting. So how did you meet that person you married? I guess, and that person already had a child.
Yes, she had a child. I met her right after I was quote unquote disfellowshipped. That's what they call it when you're kicked out of the religion. And I met her at a bar.
At bars.
Yeah. Yeah.
How quickly did you guys get married?
Like within months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you guys just really fell for each other.
Yeah.
Was it just like one of those things for you where you just felt like a new person because you're now free and independent? You're like, I'm just going full hog into whatever comes my way.
Well, if I would have been that, I probably wouldn't have gotten married,
Yeah.
So, like I said, I was still trying to live this lifestyle. And for me, it was a protection because I was like on my own. I had lived a really sheltered life, with my mom. And so I was going to college and I was doing stand-up at night. And I was just trying to live life really quickly because I felt like I was behind. All my other friends had gone to college. At 17, I started college at 21. Right before I met my wife. I was doing stand-up at night. I was just trying to catch up to life to where all my other friends were.
Yeah. And Dave Chappelle started stand-up at like 13. So you were really way behind.
I was way behind. No. I did start at Second City when I was 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did feel a little time. I'm like, I got to catch up,
I get that. I totally get that. I moved out to LA at 27. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I needed to catch up, so I started going to Second City, Groundlings, and IO all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I gotta catch up. I'm old. I
felt
missed
old.
A lot of years.
I was on SNL when I was 30, 32. Let's see, yeah. And I felt old then. I was like, I'm behind. But I was comparing myself to like Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle and these people. Like, I didn't even have a chance to do that. I had no inkling of that I would be a performer at 21, at 20, So
Murphy was on at 19, right? At SNL, right?
yeah. So I was like, well, I got to be that. That's what you have to do to be successful. And I really wish I had taken more time and just been more patient. Because even when I was there, I was just like, I got to get this done, man. I got to get, I got to get famous. I got to get on. And if I'd have been more patient, I probably would have been there longer.
Really?
It would have taken me longer to do what I wanted to do. So there's some benefit to me going like, well, this is what I want to do. And having that in my mind and having that solid was good. But then again, it was really early in my career to go like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. Without even getting a good feel for what do we want to do? What do your talents, lend you toward? What do you want to do after you've been out of this, thing for a long time and now you're finding out who you are?
Yeah.
I really wish I'd have done that. But then again, I really did get a lot out of my career in a short amount of time. Too.
SNL, I mean, that's the comedy mecca.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, every sketch improviser wants to be on SNL. And even if it's for a season, it's like, fuck, man, I was on SNL for a season. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. You know? So I got to learn a little bit, but I wish I'd learned a little bit more. It's a good place to learn. It's just, you know, pressure. The pressure is really good for performers. And as far as for writers, I think it's really good. It's not the best format because you're doing it in such a short amount of time. And sometimes the quality lacks because of that, and that's just the way it is. And a lot of times the audience just doesn't appreciate that. Right. But then again, you know, there's nothing else like that. You can't get experience like that anywhere else where it's a new show every week.
You got like 4 or 5 days to write 90 minutes of material, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I was an extra on SNL once.
What year?
It was after you, I think. It was a Tom Green episode, but not the one that you did when you were there. I think so. I think it was like a year or two. Was it a year or two later? I think so. Maybe it was a year or two before you. Okay, I don't remember now. But it was when he got engaged to, or it was a setup where they got engaged to Drew Barrymore at the end. I don't know.
I was there.
That was that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! I was there too then.
Yeah, that was the only time he ever hosted too.
Oh, is that the one?
Mm-hmm. That's the one.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
That almost ended up to be a disaster show. I think I can talk about that now, but like that whole week, we were so afraid that it was going to end up to be a disaster. And I got a sketch on that week, and I'm like, man, if he screws up my sketch, I'm going to punch this dude.
Why was there such fear?
Because he was Tom Green, you know, and he was doing
unpredictable.
He was doing stuff, and then during the dress rehearsal, he went off a couple of times and improvised and did some stuff, you know,
with the spaghetti.
Yes, exactly. It was with, and I remember Tracy breaking character and going like, he's not doing this. He's not doing the lines.
There was in dress rehearsal, there are sketches that end up getting cut. One was one I was in.
That was the one.
Well, there were a couple that got cut, and I was in a mango sketch. That ended up getting cut.
Okay, yeah.
And but he did some other sketch where he had like a bowl of spaghetti, and then he just ended up like picking it up with his hands and putting it all over his face or something weird like that. Right. That's so funny. Shit, I didn't know that was. Oh wow! Well,
you know, during those weeks, like a lot of times, the host will bring some writers in. I've actually done this after I left. You know, come in just to guest write. You know, and he brought in a few of the writers from the Tom Green show, and they wrote a couple of sketches, and they wrote like Tom Green sketches, and I think that was one. And Lauren was kind of like, well, we have to accommodate, you know, our host. He's got an idea for a sketch, and he didn't even do what was written in the sketch. But the idea was that he was going to go crazy or whatever and throw spaghetti all over the place. Yeah. And it didn't work. And
hilarious.
They cut it. Yeah.
I remember going on set, and they were practicing the mango sketch, and he had like a squid outfit on or something. Or like an octopus outfit, something like that. So they bring the extras out just to kind of look around, and he and I make eye contact, and he just goes, like, shrugs. I don't know. Even I don't know what the fuck is going on. Yeah, funny. I told people, I was like, I'm going to be on SNL. I was positive. They're not going to cut a mango sketch. They're not going to do it. And then they did.
Like, wow, they cut a mango sketch.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 minutes before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it was fun.
Yeah.
To be there. Even I'm like, hey, I'm on the set of Saturday Night Live, and this is so interesting and exciting.
It's so funny. I didn't even notice that you were there, and that would happen all the time too. We got friends and stuff, or people that we knew.
I wasn't anybody. I mean, I'm still not anybody, but I didn't know who. We didn't have the same friends that we have now. You know what I mean? Because I was still in New York.
Oh, okay.
And, I didn't move out I didn't do Chicago or LA yet or any of that stuff. That came a couple of years later.
Okay.
That's so funny. How'd you audition? What was the audition like? Did you in Chicago? Was it a Chicago audition?
Yeah. Well, I had flirted with them for a while because I started in Second City in Detroit, and they called me my last year that I was in Second City Detroit and asked me if I would audition. I couldn't then. I think I sent the audition tape in. At that point in time, Tim Meadows was still in the cast. And I was always told, like, well, as long as he's going to be in the cast, you're probably not going to be there. He's so much like him. And a year after that, he left.
And he was there a long time too.
He was. I got called to audition. Oh no, he was still there. I got called to audition. I was doing another show. I was committed to another show, or Martin Short show, and it was like this weird sketch talk show that he had that came on in the daytime in most markets, but we thought it was going to come on at night. We were doing a completely different show. So I was committed to doing this show, and I went to SNL. And when I got there, they were like, "Oh, you've already signed a contract with another show," and I was there. Like, I showed up to do the audition.
Yeah.
Walk into the studio, and they were like, "Hey, you can't audition." And like it was weird because like they had flown me to New York and all this stuff, but to get my per diem and everything that I needed, that was in that packet to audition, so I couldn't get that packet, so I like had no money.
So you lost money.
Lost money going to New York. Yeah.
Oh God.
A year later, I was in New York working for Michael Moore, and Lauren called me in to have a meeting as a writer. And the idea then was that he's like, "Yeah, no, the audition didn't go. We couldn't get you an audition." At that point, I quit the Martin Short show. It's like, why don't you? You ever thought about being a writer? I've housed writers before. Having them start as a writer and then maybe later on becoming a performer. And I said, "Yeah, I'll write."
Yeah,
and
whatever,
so
right?
yeah, and so then that next year I came in.
Okay, and then you started. How long?
I started
did you
as a
write?
writer, like. By the time the first show came on, I performed in it.
Oh, so you
that summer I got hired as a writer, started working, moved to New York, and then by the time the first show came on, I wrote a sketch and then I was in. Yeah.
And how'd that happen? Did you say I want to be in the sketch, or did they go, "Hey, you want to do it"?
Yeah, well, I probably shouldn't have said that, but yeah, I wrote the sketch and I was like, I think I want to do it, and Lauren said, "All right, you might not be ready, but all right."
Okay.
So I did it, and
how'd it go?
And it went well.
Okay.
It was a good,
what was it?
Good sketch. It was two characters that me and Horatio Sands used to do called the Old School Rappers.
Right.
And that year Eminem was on the show, and so he was in the sketch, and it worked. It was at that point it was weekend update kind of thing that we did.
Right.
A little piece.
That's funny. And you knew Horatio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from Second City. Mm-hmm.
Is it nice to have friends like that in that situation, because they can kind of back you up, right?
I mean, you almost need that.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's many people there. I don't think anybody, even to this day, gets hired by themselves. Every once in a while, people like Molly Shannon, kind of like didn't have a background in Groundlings or stand up or Second City, and usually that's the three places that they come from.
Yeah.
And even if they come from a background of stand up, or maybe like Andy Samberg, who was with a group that was
Lonely Island. Yeah.
Lonely Island, that was a online group. They usually come with other people. If you're stand up, like I'm trying to think of some of the hosts. Some of the Weekend Update hosts brought writers with them. They've been stand ups like Norm Macdonald, Colin Quinn. Some of their friends that were stand ups were also writing for them. In Second City, obviously, there's a group of people that are already there, Groundlings. A lot of Harvard writers, it's not performers, but those are all got groups that are already there and already established like a network within the show. Yeah. So it does make it a lot easier. And if you're not in one of those groups, it's going to be a lot harder for you. Mm. Yeah.
And you said that you thought maybe if you approached it differently that you might have been able to extend your stay there.
I don't know about extending my stay, but I would have been happier. Really? Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure that first year, though. I mean, I'd be, there's like a part of you that's like, hey, I'm here. And then there's like, fuck, I got to do really good, right? And I have to get sketches and people have to like me. And
well, I mean, you can do that and you can be worried about it. And you could react either the way I did, which was like sulk and be mad, or you can be like, well, I'm just happy to be here. I'll just wait my turn. And I was not.
Okay.
You want to be like, I'm waiting my turn.
Well, so you were sulking and mad?
Yes, I was sulking and mad.
Because you didn't get sketches on?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did anybody talk to you and be like, hey, just be patient and it'll be okay?
Oh, yeah, or some people would be like, hey, maybe, you should go talk to Lauren. And I'd be like, no. I'm not doing that.
He should talk to me.
To me, exactly.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
So funny.
But I'd also, I'd had an experience, I'd worked for Mr. Show.
Right.
It's a completely different experience in how you put together a show. And that was probably not a good experience for me to have to go from that, which was a show that was kind of breaking the form and doing whatever they want to, and breaking whatever they were doing at SNL and trying to change it, or had done it, versus the show of this is the show. It's on NBC. It's not on HBO. You can't do some of these things, So for me, I'd had that experience already, so I was already trying to push it past what, I was probably able to do on that show, at that point.
Did you make friends there? I mean,
I had all of my friends, from SNL, or from Second City in Chicago.
J-Lo, is she your friend now? Like Jennifer Lopez?
She did become my friend. Yeah, I haven't talked to her since then, but we got along. Yeah, cool. And then I've made other friends, that were people who hosted the show I've seen, and obviously the cast. I mean, everybody that was in my cast, I'm still friendly with. I still see all the time. Yeah,
I mean, you still work with quite a bit, like Will Ferrell. You've worked with a bunch of times, right? And, it was so funny that episode with Tom Green. So Drew Barrymore's there. Mm-hmm. Gwyneth Paltrow did a thing for Weekend Update, and then just hanging out was Cameron Diaz. All in the back. I was right there looking at probably in a creepy way, looking at all three of them, and I was like, I can't just stand here. I was like, where's the security? I'm just an extra. Why am I so close to these people?
And no, when you're there, you're in the hallway and everybody's just walking by. And
totally.
It's like that.
It's so funny.
And then it is like that. The Ramones are just standing in the hallway, or whoever decided to show up to the show that week.
Yeah, or even just to hang out and watch and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Did you have any? You had Aerosmith was there when you were there. Conan O'Brien, Dave Matthews, Charlie Sheen, Jay-Z, Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
Any memories about any other guests or?
I hung out a lot with Charlie Sheen. Still friendly with. I mean, I haven't seen him in a little while, but yeah, I'm still friendly with him.
Wow, he went off the edge there for a little bit.
He did.
Did you talk to? Were you talking to him then?
I did, and I did talk to him about stuff like that. And I remember, one late night, him telling me about a escort service that since then had gotten. Maybe a year after that got raided by the feds.
Sure.
But it was this exclusive escort service, and this is the beginning of the internet.
I mean, if anybody knows about escort service, I gotta say it's gotta be Charlie Sheen, right? If he
exactly right. And he told me, he was like, go on this website, look at this, and we're in the office, and he's like,
this SNL?
He's like, this is an exclusive escort service. This guy on here says that he can hook you up with any model or any actress that you want.
What?
And he did. He had a section on there. He had this price for these girls, and there's pictures, and then this price, and there's crazy prices too, like $10,000 a night. And then it was a page with no pictures, and it says, if there's any actress or model that you'd like to get in contact with, I will contact it with them. And in more times than not, it's worked out. So let me know.
That's crazy. So why was he showing you that stuff? Were you looking to date or something?
No, he's just like, want to see something interesting? Here's something.
There's something I'm into. That's wild.
At that point too, he was sober. I don't know if he was going through any kind of program or anything, but he was on the other side of addiction. Supposedly at that point,
he was addicted to something else. Sounds like.
Yes, yeah. But I remember he wasn't drinking. Man.
Right. I'm only doing cocaine. Beer.
His behavior during this was fine. No, I mean, he wasn't out of control. He was
not like Tom Green.
Right? I know.
Green was crazy.
Completely straight. Yeah.
That's wild. So did you request any models or actresses?
No,
or
I did not. No,
just to see. Like, all right, let me see what happens.
I did look at that. I did look on that website a couple of times after that, and then I remembered when they got busted by the feds. I remember Charlie Sheen told me about that. I wonder if he's in their like records and stuff.
Was it Heidi Fleiss? That wasn't Heidi Fleiss.
It wasn't Heidi Fleiss. No, he was in their records though too.
Yeah,
that might have been how the conversation came up. I might have been asking him about that, but I remember I talked to him about shooting his ex-wife. I don't know if people remember that.
Oh yeah, well, Denise? No, who was
it? It was actually John Travolta's wife. Present wife.
Oh, Kelly Preston.
Kelly Preston.
Right.
They were playing around with a gun, and her gun went off and shot her.
They were playing around with a gun.
I think she was trying to get the gun away from him or something like that.
That wasn't playing.
It's not playing anytime you're doing that, but
it sounds like something
fooling around or doing, yeah. She was trying to grab it from him or something, and it shot her hand.
Oh my God, that's fucking crazy! And he just talked about that openly.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that guy? And so you still sort of keep in contact with him? A couple years it's been.
I haven't seen him since the craziness.
Did you like hang out with him too?
No.
Okay.
Never had a hanging out time.
Going out.
I've seen him at like events. Kind of hung out with him then. Talked to him like celebrity events, parties, and stuff like that.
Because you're sober, you don't drink, right?
I do, yeah.
Oh, you do.
I
You
drink,
do.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because if he's sober, it's he might like to have a sober friend or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he was sober in his own way. I think. After
just cocaine.
Well, I think he drank and he was anti, programmy kind of stuff. You know. So.
Yeah. I think the religious stuff bothered him. Probably.
Yeah.
I think that's what he said.
I imagine. Yeah.
But speaking of which, so you were Jehovah's Witness. How long were you married for after all that stuff?
5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually a long time for something that was not a good idea, probably. Right. So how old was the step kid?
She was older. So when I got married, she was 8 or 9, and then by the time I got divorced, she was graduating high school.
How old was your wife?
She was much older than me.
Oh, she was older than you?
She was like 15 years older than me.
Oh, like mid-30s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was closer to my stepdaughter's age than I was to my wife.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
This is about the same, yeah.
That's wild. You got a cougar.
Yeah. Right?
But once she hit 40, you're like, I gotta go.
Right. I was like, I gotta trade up.
That's crazy. How'd you guys get along in those 5 years?
For me it was tough because I was, I was changing. But I do credit it with giving me a safe enough environment to be able to grow and change and mature, But I was definitely immature. I just didn't know anything. Like I said, I lived a really sheltered life.
Do you think you got married because you were lonely? And
yeah. Well, I needed somebody to be around. I didn't want to live at home. I felt like I was too old to live at home with my dad, who wasn't a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
And I wanted to be an adult, but I still needed the security of family, and so
it's instant family, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a wife and a kid now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you keep in touch with them at all? The little girl must be.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she has a daughter of her own. She's her daughter is older than my kid. But she's doing well. She's a writer in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. What about your ex-wife?
She lives in Atlanta. She's doing well.
Married again, or
not as far as I know. I think she did get married again, but yeah.
She still likes 20-year-olds.
Yeah, right.
Always 20. Yeah. Wow, that's wild. So, how'd the divorce go? Was it mutual or?
Yeah, it was pretty mutual. At that point, I had started performing, and I moved to Chicago. So we had a couple of years where I was gone. So I was going from, I got hired by Second City in Detroit, and then left that company, and then went to Chicago and started performing for the ETC, got hired for them. And during the first year, I would drive from Detroit to Chicago and do the shows half the week and then go back home.
Oh, wow.
I did that for a year.
That's tough. That's a long drive.
Yeah, 4 hours, yeah.
4 hours each way.
4.5, but I made it 4.
Yeah. That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you meet your current wife? You said she's a
mutual friends,
right.
yeah. And I met my current wife here in LA, even though she's from Chicago. So she went through Second City and knew a lot of my friends from Second City.
You waited a long time.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Almost. I mean, not quite 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
but quite a while. Were you nervous about doing? Did you think you'd ever get married again, or?
Yeah, no. I mean, it just wasn't important to me. You know, it was just like concentrating on career.
Yeah.
You know, it was just all I was doing, and my friends. It just wasn't something that I took seriously. And then, maybe like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I just started like concentrating on my personal life. You know, I felt like a lot of the time from the time that I got divorced till then, I had just focused so much on career because I just was blocking out so much of how I'd grown up. All the Jehovas Witness stuff, I just wanted to run away from that, and so I just cut that part of my life off. You know, I tried to get married, I tried to live that life, it didn't work for me. I'm just doing this, and just really not even thinking about that. And then a few years ago, I started thinking about how I grew up. I don't have much of a relationship with my mother, or any relationship with my mother, because she's still a Jehovah's Witness. And so when I was kicked out, what they do is they shun, basically, members that are kicked out of the religion, just like Scientology and disconnection. Yeah. And so when I started to think about that relationship and stuff like that, that's when I really started concentrating more on my personal life, and it just opened up a whole new world for me. And I got married and had a kid, and those were things that I wasn't even thinking about. Yeah.
Jehovah's Witness, would you consider it a cult?
I do.
Yeah.
Cult is a pejorative, and everybody has a different, definition for themselves, and even the definition in the dictionary is pretty basic. I mean, that can apply to so many things if you just look at the dictionary definition. But when I compare it to groups like Scientology, or even groups that we all consider cults, like the People's Temple and Jim Jones, stuff like that. When I left Jehovah's Witnesses, I felt like it was a lot like that. I felt like that there were a group of people who would do things that other people may find morally reprehensible, but that they're doing it for the group, and they are denying their own morality. They're denying the things that are in their own mind that they would never do because they're brainwashed. They are unduly influenced to do some things because of pressure from the group. So it's a high control group. The things that I look for, actually, I did a lot of research when I started thinking about this, and I looked for the top scientists or anybody that was doing any research into groups like that, into cults. I found a guy named Steve Hassan who was a Mooney, who was in the Unification Church.
Okay.
Years ago. He left the Unification Church and became a scholar on groups like that, on cults. And he wrote this book called Combating Cult Mind Control back in the 80s. And the book didn't have anything about Jehovah's Witnesses in it. Because I wanted to see what people who study groups like this, how do they, what are their criteria for it? And to me, it was like it would be biased if they had already proclaimed this group as a cult. So I just want to see what is the basic criteria. And I looked at it, and then I looked him up and did some research, and he's like, you don't know how many people I've had that are Jehovah's Witnesses that have come to me with the same question. And at this point in time, it was just starting to be some stuff on the internet about it. You couldn't even find that much stuff about Scientology, on the internet.
So it wasn't included because he just didn't. It just didn't.
He just hadn't gotten to it yet. Yeah. He's gotten a second edition now, and now it's in it.
Yeah.
So since then, So yeah, that was the beginning of my journey on looking at groups like this. And since then, I've done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people. I have a lot of friends that are former members of a lot of different groups, and they're all different groups. They're not just religious; they are political. They're groups that are sales groups, corporate kind of cults, you know. But they all have certain things that are just alike, you know.
They're all Trump supporters. They all have that in common. They're all Trump supporters. Did you hear about that guy from Imagine Dragons?
No.
The lead singer of Imagine Dragons is Mormon. Was raised Mormon, but he kind of left. Well, has he left? I don't. I think he left because so many. He's doing a documentary about all these gay people that are Mormon killing themselves and committing suicide and stuff. I know I did some research on you, and you had depression. And you were suicidal. What is it about that common thread, do you think, for, I guess, in your experience? I mean, you're not gay, but in this case, but I mean, you could imagine like what it might be like for like a gay person. Oh,
I saw people. Yeah. Can I go to the bathroom and then I'll tell you?
No, I told you you can't go.
This got really interesting, man.
And pause. And we're back.
Okay.
How how'd it go in there?
Oh, it's perfect. I feel very relieved.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So your question was, there's the lead singer of Imagine Dragons is making known the problem of gay teens in the Mormon Church committing suicide, dealing with depression and stuff like that. It's definitely something that was prominent and people didn't talk that much about in the Jehovas Witnesses. But there was recently a murder suicide story that happened in the Detroit area with a Jehovah's Witness family, and it was actually a family that had been disfellowshipped, or they were being shunned, and the mother actually, it's a really horrible story, committed a murder suicide with the family. For me, I really wouldn't. It was depression, but it was like it wasn't from the inside. It was, for me, I was just trapped. I was raised in it, and even as a teenager, I had really strict rules. I couldn't even do a lot of things that other Jehovah's Witness kids could do. Like, I couldn't go to dances. I wasn't allowed to associate that much with people that were outside the religion. I had to go to meetings every month, and in fact, if I wasn't going to meetings, my mother was, I couldn't live at home. That was just the way it was. If I was going to live there, and even especially as a teenager, I was going to adhere to those rules. So obviously no holidays. They don't celebrate holidays and things like that. But I couldn't go to any school dances. I couldn't play any sports. I couldn't associate with kids outside of school. And then in my senior year, I was allowed to do one thing, and that was the quiz bowl. But that was the only extracurricular activity I was ever allowed to do. It was a contest between schools, a quiz contest.
Okay.
Academic, stuff. Yeah.
How'd you do in school?
Well, then I did well. I did really well, and that was a problem too, because I was given the goal after school. My goal was to go and work for the religion at their world headquarters in New York, and so I didn't take any classes to prepare me for college. I had no goal of going to college. I was discouraged.
This is a life commitment.
It's a life commitment, yeah. And I will say that not all kids are pressured as much as I was, but I was.
Because of your mom.
Because of my mom, yeah. But she was doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You're supposed to encourage your kids. You're supposed to put these rules down on them, and those are the things that you're supposed to do. And a lot of kids make that commitment a lot earlier than I do. There's kids that, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, when you get baptized, that's when you're dedicating your life to the organization. And there's kids as young as 11, 12, years old that are doing that. I didn't do it until I was 17. But it's really common for kids to do it much earlier than that. So,
were you born into it?
I wasn't. I was 7 years old when my mother got into it.
What happened then that made her become Jehovah's Witness?
I mean, she had a really hard life. She was orphaned at 5. She was raised by people that I don't even know who they were, but she had a really hard upbringing.
In terms of like abuse?
Abuse, yeah. She was an abusive situation. Her family, you know, when her mom died, when she was orphaned, her and her siblings were just split up between a bunch of different people. So she just really had a hard life. And I think for her, she was looking for, I know she was looking for something to belong to.
Yeah.
That wasn't the first type of thing that we were involved in. And we were involved in different kind of churches that I would call kind of culty. She did try, you know, classes in Scientology, you know, any group. I mean, she was in it. And
she couldn't afford Scientology.
Exactly. Probably not, you know. Yeah. And so I think it just and she had some other relatives that were involved in it. And I remember when they came to our house, and you know, at the time that she came in, they were proclaiming that the end of the world was going to happen in that year. That was 1975. So
year I was born.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember. I was a little kid, but I do remember them coming around. I don't remember that much about that year, but that was a big year for them. They were kind of saying at the end of the world.
It's an exciting year.
Yeah. So she got in. So the
end of the world.
Yes.
That stuff is so crazy to me, and it's so troublesome. And you know, your mom had abuse, and sounds like she was constantly abandoned in her childhood and stuff. And with a cult, it's the opposite. There's no abandonment.
No.
And if you do, then you're shunned.
Right.
You know, that's
exactly.
That's a message they send about abandonment. So it kind of makes sense that she goes that way, but.
And also, like the whole, you know, she was a single mother.
Yeah.
You know, we were living in the projects then, and so I think for her, like, she could see all the things on the outside, and she just wanted a clean, you know, life. And for a lot of people, especially for people that lived in that community, they would look at Jehovah's Witnesses and go like, "Oh, they dress nice. Their kids seem to be well behaved. That's the example that you want to be like." And for her, she could see that of like, "Oh, I want that kind of life for my family."
Do you have siblings?
I do with step siblings. So my dad got married again, and I have a brother and sister from that marriage. They know Jehovah's Witness. In fact, that was who I went to. For me, it was lucky. I was lucky that I had another side of my family. It was my dad's family, who I kind of become estranged from.
From Jehovah's Witness, right?
Being a Jehovah's Witness, yeah.
You probably didn't see him for like a decade or something or more.
Spent less and less time as I was growing up. Yeah. When I was in school, it was good for me because I would see my dad on the weekends, and it was a completely different environment. But the older I got, the more the Jehovah's Witnesses were a pull on me, and the less I saw my dad and that side of my family. But I did have them to go to when I was kicked out. When
you're getting older, now you're starting to think more for yourself, and so they probably want you to distance yourself from other thoughts.
Sure, I would get that. And in fact, even as 13 or 14, I would get like, "Oh, you know, why do you want to go over there so much? You just want to." I would get the what do you call it? The guilty treatment. You know, like, "Oh, what do you want to go? Now you don't have to be a Jehovah's Witness when you're over there, do you?" You know, so I stopped.
Don't you like us?
Yeah, you don't like you, or even like, "Oh, you get to go and do what you want to." You know, they go and celebrate holidays and stuff like that.
Ooh, fancy.
So even when I was there, I would find myself, you know, arguing with my stepmother and my dad over holidays and stuff like that, because I felt like I had to show, my allegiance to the organization. So when the holidays would come up, I'd be like, "No, I can't do that," or "I can't be here."
Right.
You know. Yeah.
Oh God. Well, was your mom abusive?
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
What would that look like? Like just beating you, or?
Yeah, she loved the beatings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's probably pretty
so. That was a
common.
part of my Jehovah's Witness too. Of like, I didn't just, a lot of people didn't get it beat into them, but I did, and I got indoctrinated much more than a lot of other kids. My mom found it necessary. I don't know why. I think she was just going through a lot emotionally when she first got in it, but she wanted to have her 9, 10, 8-year-old kid to have the same understanding that she did as an adult. So I didn't just know, like, I wasn't just told like little kid Bible stories. I was into the deeper things of what that religion meant. The prophecies, all that stuff. I knew that stuff at a really
intense.
Really intense. And also, and not only that, but the moral part of it too. So I'm 9, 10 years old saying like, these are why you don't do drugs. And I'm like, I don't even know what drugs are, or
you didn't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is why masturbation is wrong. I'm like, I don't even know what's down there. And I was given that stuff like no, you need to know about this because the devil is after you just as much as he is after me. And
there must be a lot of discrimination, right, and prejudice, right? Not just for people that aren't Jehovah's Witness, but for like gays.
Yes, there's none of that.
If you're gay, then that's no good. Like,
it is no good. No.
Beat it out of you or something.
Yes. Well, not beat it out, but any kind of immorality, and for them too is a weird thing because they saw being gay as just being immoral.
Yeah.
So for them it was like they would literally use the word sodomy. They were like, that's what you are. You're not just it's not just a lifestyle. You have just gone. You're just so into sex that you will have sex with anything. That was their idea. And it warps people. I think it warped a lot of them, as far as
especially at a young age. If you're starting to do that to people at a young age, like kids, that's totally screws up. And like the West Memphis Baptist,
Westboro,
Westboro, right? So they were on. You're a Stern fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a Stern fan. They were on the Stern Show many years ago, and. So that woman brought all her kids on, and the kids were saying the most fucked up stuff you've ever heard anybody say in your life. Cut to today, one of those kids grew up and left.
Yes.
Do you know about this?
Oh, yeah.
And she found a husband that's a liberal, and now she's a liberal, and she's shunned from those people as well.
The thing about them is that they're basically a family.
Yeah.
That took over that church.
Right.
And that's the thing about groups like this. Like, at one time, the People's Temple was just a regular church. The group in Waco, what was the name? Before David Koresh took it over, it was an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventist Church, Wasn't that crazy? So a lot of these groups can be, like, taken over by somebody that can all of a sudden start putting these kind of ideas in people's heads and, and all of a sudden now you're in Guyana and everybody's drinking, Kool-Aid. And it wasn't that way before. It was a church that worked with the community and, the worked with the mayor, and the mayor was friendly with them and gave them, different things, different prizes or whatever, like working with the city. So, it is, I think, a human phenomena that can happen. And I think it's a thing that can naturally happen with groups, that groups have to be really careful to not let happen.
It's hard to do that because probably how that happens is a lot of people are passive, right?
Sure.
And then the more aggressive ones win the presidential election.
Well, that's just human nature, right?
You're right. When was your mom? Did she lay a hand on you before Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, worse. So I will say that I think a lot of her being involved in that was her trying to regulate her emotions and trying to become a better person. I think she was a lot of other things that she was struggling with.
What do you think? Like mental illness?
I mean, it's hard for me to say. And not give too much away because I don't know.
Right.
Exactly what she was struggling with.
She's never been diagnosed bipolar or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't want to gossip about her. But there were definitely things that I saw when I was growing up that made me go like, "Oh, you're struggling with something. I think you might be struggling with something." And And for a lot of other people outside of a religious aspect might be able to deal with it fine, if that makes any sense.
Right. Because like there's medication or doctors or therapy or whatever that you...
Or just finding people that are like you. You know, I think, you know, it was a different time for her. So yeah, I don't want to like.
What are you thinking?
I don't want to gossip, you know. I don't want to accuse. I don't want to accuse anybody of stuff. And also, like, this is a story that I do plan on telling, but I think she might have been struggling with sexuality a little bit.
Oh, okay. So you think she might be bi or gay or something? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, and wow. Well, that's true. That would be hard for her too, then.
Well, this goes back to the Mormon thing what you were just talking about. Okay, well, why so many teens might be committing suicide. So for me, what I was dealing with, I'm straight, and not that that's better or anything else, but I found it a struggle because of my normal desires, and my desires were normal. I'm like, I want a girlfriend. I'd like to like maybe have sex with that girlfriend, but I wasn't like, I just want to have sex with every woman in the world. You know, I just wanted to have sex, like everybody else. Yeah. And so dealing with those natural urges, to me, felt unnatural because I had grown up as a Jehovah's Witness. And what I was always told is like with the world and Satan and everything outside of the Jehovah's Witness bubble is pressuring you to want to do these immoral things, these moral acts. But I also knew that, well, being married and having sex, that's supposed to be fine, right? Right. But I was in no position to be married at that point in time. I had no education. I wasn't going to school. You know, I had a terrible job. I wasn't able to take care of a family, and the only way you can have sex and be a Jehovah's Witness is if you're married. Right. I did have friends that got married, and like I did, you know, like young, at a really early age.
13 or something?
I had friends that got married at 19, 18, and living at home and stuff like that, yeah. But that wasn't going to happen and wasn't going to happen in my house. I mean, if I was stayed, I guess it would have had to happen, you know. But it was just depressing, you know. And also, the people that I'd gone to school with, I've completely lost contact with them, and they're living their lives, you know. They're dating, they're going to college, and you know, and they seem normal, but I'm being told that is bad. But I still have these desires, and so I'm going to the elders, the older men in the congregation, and I'm saying like, "Hey, man, all I can think about is sex. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm 18."
That sounds like trouble. That kind of sounds like trouble. That sounds like it's going somewhere else. You know, like you're talking to these older men, as a younger guy talking about, "Hey, I'm kind of horny," and you're like, "Oh, well, let me fix that for you," you know.
And it would be, well, I mean, that's just what we have to deal with. And I'm also talking to men who are married too, right? Yeah. And just to show you how warped like their thinking would get, they would go, well, you know, Satan he's always tempting us. You know, I had one guy tell me, you know, sometimes I find myself sexually aroused when I see dogs having sex, and I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about like a girl. Yeah. You're talking about dogs. You know, that's how bad it had gotten. Just like, hey man, you know, anything can make you pop off. I see dogs.
That's so crazy.
So I'm like, that's what I have to look forward to.
I saw a train go in a tunnel, and
and this guy's married. Right. You know, and I could see then. I'm like, this is not going to be a good life, and it just made me more and more depressed.
When did the depression start for you?
Immediately after I became after I got baptized and started, you know,
like 7, 8.
7, no. I mean, because then when I was growing up, I was still a kid. You know, I didn't dedicate my life to it. Although I still had that pressure, so I felt like I'm going to have to do this soon. And by the time I graduated high school, I'm like, well, you know, there's no way that I can't be baptized. I got to do it. What they tell you is that, you know, yes, children can live, can survive God's anger or God's destructive day by being with their parents. But once you get to a certain age, once you know the difference between right and wrong, and that can be when you're 12, then you're responsible on your own. And I remember seeing pictures in their publications of kids being killed Like you've seen pictures of like earthquakes and kids falling into holes and stuff, cars falling into the cracks and lightning hitting kids and getting burned on fire.
Just not literally, but it's like a drawing.
A drawing,
or something?
yeah.
Okay.
Like
real.
Oh no, there's a lot of drawings of like destruction and stuff, but that would be in kids' books, you know.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
So I felt the pressure of like I got to do this, I got to dedicate my own life, and so when I did at 17. Then that was after I got out of school, so I wasn't getting any other contact from anybody else on the outside. I wasn't seeing my dad. I didn't see kids at school. That's when the depression started really hitting me.
Okay.
And my friends, all my friends who were around the same age. I mean, we all went through the same thing.
Really?
Yeah. And most of them didn't leave the organization in a clean way, you know, like they didn't just say, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore and I'm going to live this life like it was suicide attempts or, you know, getting somebody pregnant or, you know, these like violent, situations. I have a friend that, actually killed somebody, got in a fight and killed somebody. It just seemed like, you know, for me and all my group of friends that it was really hard. And then I had a friend that died from that didn't have a blood transfusion. It wasn't necessarily from not having a blood transfusion, but he had an aneurysm. His family refused the blood transfusion, and then he died.
It probably could help because that's part of the Jehovas Witnesses. You refuse blood transfusions and something else. I was reading up on it. Something else, but that's crazy. So. And you attempted it, right? Did you attempt
I did, yeah.
How'd you I was suicidal. I never actually attempted it, but for like years I was suicidal. I didn't go through nearly as much as you did, but I think in a similar way of just like this feeling trapped and not being happy and not feeling listened to or heard or acknowledged, and there's no way out.
Yeah.
And
you said it perfectly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I thought about it quite a bit.
Okay.
I've done a lot of therapy too. I've done a lot of therapy. So what? I'm sorry. So what was your? How were you gonna?
Yeah, it was exactly it. I felt trapped. So it was in that situation where, you know, the goal I had of going to work for the organization at their headquarters, that fell through because probably because of a lot of the stress that I was going under. Because I was also a full-time minister for them.
Oh.
So I was going knocking on doors, door to door, 90 hours a month, working at night, so I wasn't getting any sleep. And I was just doing all I can for the organization, trying to get to that goal of being able to go to New York. While I was doing that, I had a seizure.
Oh, you had a seizure?
I had a grand mal seizure. It runs in my family, but...
just stress, I guess.
I'm sure I was not sleeping.
Yeah.
I was just not sleeping. I was going 24 hours a day. So I would go and knock on doors from the morning from, 7 till 3 in the afternoon. Maybe try to get some sleep or maybe do some more other activities that had to do with Jehovah's Witness, like go and have a Bible study with somebody from 4 until 8. And then I would go to the Jehovah's Witness meetings. From 8 until 10.
Where are you living at this point?
Flint, Michigan.
Flint. So all this is in Flint.
Mm-hmm. So, and it's rough there too. I mean, also this is the beginning of crack. So my neighborhood has just become crack central all overnight, and I'm doing all this work. I'm trying to do this, and it's just 24 hours. 24 hours a day. I was not getting any sleep. It's ridiculous. So I had a seizure, and I'm told at that point that the organization doesn't take people who have any medical problems because you basically, when you work for them, it's like Scientology and the Sea Org. You take a vow of poverty. You don't get paid any money. You basically just get your basic needs met. Right. You get a little bit of a stipend that's probably below minimum age, but you live in a dorm and you work for them 24 hours a day, right? So, but they don't take people with any kind of medical condition because that can be a liability. Medication, all this stuff. Now, I had only had one seizure at that point, so I'm like, well, who knows even what's wrong with me? Probably just from stress, and I need to relax. And they go, yeah, you're not going to be able to go to New York. So everything that I've been working toward, like even high school, all the classes I had taken, I didn't take any college prep classes. So I mean, wasn't even prepared to go to college. All I've been doing is taking classes that
they told you to take. Right?
Yeah, or that I thought that would prepare me to go work for them. I was
Yeah.
taking classes in printing because they were printing the Watchtower Awake, you know. So I was like, so my whole, you know, future is gone. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't go to New York. And for me, that was like, well, you know, that took care of a job and everything. Even though it was a vow of poverty, I'd be poor. At least I'd have a place to stay, live, you know. That was what I was going to be doing. And I would, you know, my career would have been as a Jehovah's Witness, you know. So I was left out in the cold. And that was the very beginning, because I had just got baptized. I'm in this now, you know. I'm in it wholeheartedly, and you know, doing the work and working 24 hours a day for him. And then like just a couple months in, no, you can't go. You know.
So you got depressed.
So I got depressed. Then my friend died. Then a lot of my friends started dropping out and things started happening to him.
When your friend died, your friend killed himself, right? Is that the friend?
No, he did not kill himself.
Oh.
I had a friend that tried
transfusion.
to. The transfusion. He died.
Gotcha.
Then I had another friend that tried to kill himself. And then, you know, when these people, like he dropped out of the Jehovah's Witness, I'm not supposed to talk to him. So I don't know what happened. All I know is that something happened. He tried to commit suicide, but he's gone. You know, he got lost to Satan. And that's another thing that happens to people too, is that you don't know the story.
Yeah.
All they do is that if you're kicked out, they'll read an announcement saying like this person isn't a Jehovah's Witness anymore. That means you're not supposed to talk to them. What they usually do is that people work their way back into the organization. They'll come to the meetings. Nobody will talk to them for a year or so, and they just sit there. While nobody's talking to them, they write a letter, and if they come enough with nobody talking to them, they may let them in at some point.
Wow, that's crazy.
And for me, I thought, and this goes back to the whole suicide attempt or whatever, because I was partially kicked out because of the suicide attempt. That was one of the reasons, because you're not supposed to try to kill yourself. That's against the rules.
I mean, I guess that's a good rule. I guess that's the one good rule.
Yeah, but like, so now your punishment is nobody's going to talk to you, and that means nobody.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, like, well, at least the older men, at least the they're not called pastors, but they would have that position, and you know, with a different title. The elders would talk to me and help me. You know, obviously, this is a 19-year-old kid who just tried to kill himself. You know, there's got to be some help for him. No. I was told, you know, after I got out of the hospital, that I was disfellowshipped and that nobody had talked to me, and if I wanted to write a letter in a year, I could write a letter and ask to be reinstated, or I could, you know, yeah. So I was, you know, I had the option to come to the meetings and sit in the back and have nobody talk to me, and do that for a year and try to work my way back in. And
Did you see people do that?
Oh, all the time, yeah.
Really?
Most people.
Really?
Most people do that, yeah.
Wow.
And for me, I went, this isn't God's love.
Yeah.
This is not God's organization. It was just that, and it turned me on a dime. I'm like, no, this, you know.
I mean, then you're just back in the misery again, right? Then you're just back in it again, and who's to say you're not going to try?
Well, and then at that point, I was going to have to go get help from a professional, you know, because there was also nobody else to help me. Now, I was encouraged before then. You know, this is who you go. You come to us, you know, if you need help like that. You obviously you're depressed or whatever. You come to us. You go. You can pray more. We'll pray with you.
Come to the people that are causing your depression.
Well, I didn't have that. I couldn't talk to them, so I had to go to a doctor, and I went to actually a real psychologist who was like, "You're fine. You're normal." You know, I just see what the problem is, and that psychologist did not tell me that religion was a problem.
Yeah.
He just said, "You're a normal, you know, 20-year-old guy."
Yeah.
And just being told that was like, just helped me immensely.
How did you, can I ask how you attempted it?
Yeah, a couple ways. So so one night I tried to smash my car into a wall. Didn't work. I tried to asphyxiate.
Like you crashed the car?
Crashed the car into a wall, and there was a guardrail in front of it that I didn't see. It was like right at the bumper level. So I knocked my bumper off, kind of went into the wall, crashed the wall, but at that point, it was like people around and stuff like that, so I made noise, so I had to leave. I tried to go into empty parking lot and asphyxiate myself. I found a rubber hose and put it in the car from the tailpipe. Went to sleep. Heard somebody outside my car walking around. I looked up and a guy had kicked the tailpipe out. Saw me in the car and was running back to whatever building was to go call the cops or to call somebody.
Wow!
He had knocked on the window and I heard him, and then I looked out and I saw the hose wasn't in the window anymore.
Right.
And then I just saw this guy running back to this building, so I assumed that he saw me in there.
And you saved your life.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
Probably right.
And then, but still didn't. Still tried again. I tried to overdose on my anti-seizure medication, which is Dilantin.
Okay.
Which is heavy, which is bad news, and Vicodin, which I had just because I had a tooth pulled like before. I survived that because the seizure medication I took were capsules. And I probably took over 100 capsules. When you take capsules, that outside material on the capsule, it all congealed in my stomach and made it harder for that. Just like a capsule, makes it harder for that medicine to release into your bloodstream all at once.
Oh wow!
It's just like it became like a big giant capsule, and that capsule didn't all dissolve.
That's crazy.
All at once. So if it was like pills, then I probably would have been dead. But I was feeling the effects beforehand, before I went to the hospital. So I took a bunch of these pills. I'm not gonna tell the whole story because this is like I have a script and all this stuff. I know. I was like, what?
Second City.
Hey man, if anybody's gonna make money off this story, I should be able to. This is a crazy story.
So. Did you get your stomach pumped or something?
I did get my stomach pumped, but I lived because those capsules had congealed so much in my stomach.
Somebody found you, or did you just go, I don't feel good, I'm just going to go to the hospital?
My mom found, I thought I'd be dead by the time she came home. I was still living with my mom.
Did you do that on purpose as like a, fuck you, look at this, look what you did? Did you leave suicide notes or anything? No. But I knew that everybody would have known what was going on. Right. And I knew the elders would especially know. So it was just like, go talk to them, whatever. And I was so despondent at that point in time, too. It just wasn't thinking straight. There's a whole story to this that... script.
Yes, that's in my script. But you can follow me at Jerry Minor at Instagram, whatever.
I was going to say, you should write a book or something. This sounds like a book. I mean, a movie, too, but...
There's a lot more of this stuff coming. You're going to see my story in some really prominent stuff coming up in the year that I can't really talk about yet, but it has to do with more than just the Jehovah's Witness religion. It has to do with cults or other groups in general, but it's something that a lot of people already know about. So it's coming up later on in the year. I know, right?
Mysterious. Well, maybe I'll have you back.
Well, and part of the reason, I'm talking about this now, but legal action that might take place and all this stuff.
Oh boy,
But I think it's going to be a pretty big deal.
Okay. It's just like, are you getting your own Leah Remini type show on A&E, like
something? Not my own show, but it's kind of something like that.
Okay, all right, interesting. Do you relate to? You ever meet Leah Remini?
Kind of something like that.
Oh, this is exciting. I'm hitting on something. Yeah. That's interesting. So when stuff like that pops up, like a Leah Remini or something, do you or even suicide? Do you connect to that? When I hear like Chris Cornell killed himself, or Anthony Bourdain, or Kate Spade, or something, it really affects me. Yes, quite a bit.
Me too. And for me, I haven't felt that. I've never been close to suicide since then. Never felt that way. So for me, it was looking back and going like, well, I've had 30 years and I haven't been close to that. What was that about? And so I do feel like I have that thing of being able to empathize with people who are going through that because I was in it, and also know that I'm 30 years past that and I'm nowhere near that. And so you can tell people like, I know the way it feels right now. You can't escape. But you also cannot imagine how I'm feeling right now. You can't imagine being on the other side of this. And I'm telling you, you will be. You will be. You're going to feel different. And being able to tell people that. I've told myself that because I know it.
Yeah.
But being able to go, I guarantee you that you're not going to feel the way you're feeling right now.
Have you been able to tell people one-on-one stuff like that? You have?
Yeah. Just
including people that are in Jehovah's Witness?
Not necessarily in Jehovah's Witness, but people who have left.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
And
people just like in general depressed. You know, just being able to go like, you know, I know that feeling. I tried it for real. By the grace of God, I'm still with you. And that was another thing that so when I survived that, I went, well, God wants me to live, and so I'm going to live by this. Whatever they're telling me, I don't know, but I survived that, and that was a miracle. So
you're still pretty religious, it sounds like.
No.
Okay. Well, you believe in God, I mean.
No, I mean.
Oh, you don't?
No, not really.
Oh, okay.
No.
You said by the grace of God, so I'm like, oh.
I mean, I still give. You know, I guess I'm agnostic. I'll give the 1% chance that it might be true. Okay. Whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
It's a higher power.
Higher power, whatever you want to call it. I'll give you the chance that might be true, and for people that live their lives by that, I don't blame them. You know, I think that that's a way for us human beings to cope. That's my personal feeling about it. But, you know, if you want to believe in that and you still treat your fellow man well, good for you. I don't care. You know,
I don't like it when people use. I'm an atheist myself. I was raised Catholic, but I don't like it when they use religion to hate.
Yeah.
That I like it. I like it so much more when I meet somebody who's religious, and they're just all heart. And love.
Then it's like, do whatever space thing that you believe in. Yes, whatever. You know, if it's causing people to like get along and love, you know, and I know many religious people that are like that. So I don't, you know, just fault religion in itself, you know, for stuff like this. And I know that the extremes of what it can be. I know, you know, how my experience can turn somebody off to religion. And it's almost like you got to deal with it. Because it was forced so much in every part of my life, I had to deal with whether this is real or not. And I think a lot of people, most religious people, aren't really confronted with that. You don't really have to deal with whether this is real or not. You don't have to really put it on the line, you know. Yeah. You believe and, you know, hopefully whatever. I think that's the way most people really are. In the situations that are extreme like this, you better be believing it or not, because that's the way you're living your life, you know.
You get a whooping. You know? When you would go door to door, I hate it when people knock on my door. I hate it.
Me too.
And do you? I mean, that's interesting. Do you ever have a Jehovah's Witness knock on your door?
Yeah, somebody asks me. I always get that question. Oh. You know, and then it goes into a whole bunch of like what they do and who they actually target. You know, because, you know, the neighborhood I live in, no, hardly ever. But there are neighborhoods around here in L.A., we're both in L.A. right now, where I see them all the time. And now...
You spot them?
Oh, yeah, I spot them all the time, and I can tell you where they're at. And now they've kind of got to focus on this thing where they just stand on the street with these carts, and they don't talk to people as much as they used to. When I was in... you would not be able to get away with what they're getting away with now when I was in. You had to talk to people. You had to be brave. You had to go and knock on people's doors. I don't see them doing that much. I see them avoiding contact.
That's a lot of confrontation, probably. Did you have a lot of confrontation doing that?
Probably not as much as they have now, because you got the internet. Yeah. You got so many things. They have a you know, a child abuse controversy now that I'm sure a lot of people would bother them about, you know. Right. So they don't really want to, they just want to give you their stuff. They don't want a discussion. And then there's also there's more of us. There's more of us people who have left than the people who are in. Oh, wow. So it's a good chance that you're going to run across somebody who may have been in, you know.
Interesting. So and they don't want you interacting with somebody that left.
Do not talk to those people. No. This is why my mom doesn't talk to me. You don't talk to people who left.
Right. Wow, that's so fucked up.
So, I've never seen them that much. I've never come to my door ever, and probably because I live in like kind of hipster neighborhoods where they're not going to get that much young, hip, gay, you know, whatever, you know.
Like cults, they typically go after people that are lonely or you know, secluded or outcasts or right, something like that. Somebody that's looking for.
And if you're not a Scientologist, probably lower on the economic scale. especially Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
I mean, even by anybody's standards, if you look on the Pew religious survey, they always are at the bottom of income, always, and education. Somebody's
profiting off of cults. Who is profiting off of Jehovah's Witness?
That's always interesting because it's rarely for the money. It's rarely like.
It's just for the
let's just get more. I mean, you've got enough money. You're going to get money, right? So you're going to have enough money to.
There's that guy. Did you see that guy, the religious guy on TV, going, "Well, I need a new jet."
Yes,
so I had 3 jets, and they were all great. And but now God says I need a new jet, and it's going to cost about $50 million, and he's going to get it.
Right?
He's going to get that jet.
Yeah. He's putting that.
Is that fucking crazy? I would throw that guy in jail immediately.
Yeah, I mean, and that I wouldn't even necessarily consider a cult. There's a lot of those televangelists, right? Who are just open with it, but they preach that prosperity gospel of you give me money, that means you're gonna get money.
Yeah.
Right.
And God says you go to heaven.
Right. And that's a thing of its own self, which I really consider because they don't have that kind of control that these other groups have.
Right.
And these other groups aren't necessarily on it not necessarily for the money. You may see the leader living high style, in high style or whatever, but it's not necessarily that. It's more control. Because if you have control, they're not trying to go we're going to be the biggest religion ever, and so we need more and more money. That doesn't do you any good. You got enough. You got your clothing. You never have to worry about where you're going to live. You never know where you're going to eat. You never have to worry about people worshiping you at your feet. So why do you need to make more and more and more money? You got it. But it seems to be the motivation seems to be more control. And people who enjoy that kind of thing. I mean, if Jim Jones wasn't crazy, that could have been a real money-making thing. Right. Obviously, he had what he wanted, but he wanted to live on his own, have his own country, and have people, And that seems to be more the motivation for those guys. Now, as far as Scientology, a lot of these organizations have money. They are technically charitable organizations, and so they have to put that money to use. And so that's why you see Scientology constantly opening up new buildings with nothing in them. Is because they can't just have these stores of money just sitting around. They have to put that to use if you're a charity.
Right.
And so they just open a building or whatever.
Yeah. You can always sell it later.
Jehovah's Witnesses, it's interesting because, that was always something that appealed to my mom, and that was a big point to all of us. Is this is not a money-making organization. We don't see our clergy. We don't have a clergy class, first of all. They do. But even then, they don't, because they are run by, I think it's 12 men. They're called the governing body. They used to have a president and one leader. Then they went to more of a corporate structure in the 50s, and they had a board of whatever. And then in the 70s, that board kind of took over the leadership. So it's a group, it's a body that is in the leadership. And those guys, they live on a compound in New York. They travel around and do nothing but preach. They don't have jobs, regular jobs. They get fed. Their compound has a farm. They used to have a couple of different facilities in Brooklyn and out in upstate New York. Now they've sold the Brooklyn property, so they got good money from that. And a lot of their business model at first was printing literature. They were the biggest religious publishers in the world at one time.
Wow.
But nobody uses paper anymore.
Right.
So they've kind of concentrated. Yeah, they've kind of concentrated on the online thing right now. So they have something called JW Broadcasting. Same thing the Scientologists are doing.
Right.
Where they just bought a television station. And so that's basically the way they're disseminating the information. The money seems to be different. Now it seems to be more in real estate. A few years ago, they had all of the congregations used to be independent, where the congregation would get their money together. They'd buy a church, what they call a kingdom hall. They'd buy a plot of land or whatever. They'd all get together. They'd build it. the congregation owns it. A few years ago, the central religion took ownership of all the kingdom halls, and now the congregations pay the central. So even if that congregation had bought their own kingdom hall, now that kingdom hall is owned by the central organization, and they're in the process now of liquidating that stuff, and so that's the way that they are making money to stay to continue, but not necessarily a profit. It's not a profit making organization. But
was your mom and dad married?
They were married.
They were married, and how long were they married for? About
6 years.
6 years, and then they divorced. Was the part of the divorce because she was?
Yeah, my dad says it was, but she wasn't a Jehovah's Witness yet.
Right.
But it was because of that kind of thing.
Like mentality of...
She was just always trying to get into some group, some kind of religious group or something like that, yeah.
I mean, that must have been so hard for him. Did he want to see you more? The idea of like, oh my God, my kid's now trapped in this crazy world, that would drive me crazy. Did he try anything legally to try to get you?
No, and that's hard for a lot of people, because the more you press from the outside, the more they'll go away from you. So I think he kind of like tried to temper it, where like, at least I'm seeing my son enough, and he would just try to encourage me. But at that point, trying to talk to me would just be again, I would get mad at him or whatever, just cause a rift between us.
He must have been thrilled when you left. He must have been so happy.
Well, I mean, but he was also like given this mess on his doorstep too, so he was thrilled to have me, but also I think,
you had some
pretty
stuff
mad
to
at my
go
mom,
through. Well, sure.
Yeah, he's like, what is this?
But at least you got out.
Yes.
At least you got out, and he could have a relationship with his son.
And he didn't know all that stuff, He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know. All he knew was that his son is saying, I want to do this.
Yeah. It's even scarier, though, right? You don't even know what's going on, so you're like, I have no idea if he's okay,
He tried to talk to my mom, but as far as with me, he's just trying to, he's trying to have a one-on-one, relationship with me. So he's just trying to keep his relationship together. And I feel for people on the outside who don't have a book, who don't have, now there's so many resources on the internet, and there's so many books out. But just 5 years ago, there wasn't that.
Yeah.
Now the internet has caused so much. I mean, it's what has made this break in Scientology, and Scientology is just a minuscule compared to Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses have like 8 million members, and they really do have 8 million members, probably in their periphery worldwide. Scientology probably has a few in the tens of thousands, really.
Oh, really?
Realistically, yeah. Yeah.
That's it?
That's it.
Get out of here. I went to an orientation for Scientology before I knew what it was. Because somebody was like, oh, this is like in 2000. This is maybe around 2000, 2001, something like that. And I came out to LA, and my friend was living here, and she goes, you have any interest in seeing and going to, I don't want to go alone to Scientology building, but I'm interested. They show an orientation video, and I was like, oh, yeah, I've been hearing some stuff about that. Okay, sure. And we went and we watched, and sure enough, you walk in and you just kind of look around a little, and they go, hey, you guys interested in seeing an orientation video? And they have like a little movie theater in there. It's right on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is it. We kind of started, we just looked at each other and like, this is it. And we go inside, and it's a fucking crazy video.
I've seen it.
Oh, you did?
I've seen the video, yeah.
The one back then was like a John Travolta was in it. And,
yeah, well, the guy who was doing the...
Orlando Bloom was in it for some reason.
Yeah, and the guy that was doing the voiceover. Now I want to see, was it Jason Begay? Or was it a different guy? It might be, but that guy that does the voiceover for that film was a Scientologist, too. That was kind of a known actor. And I'm kind of blanking. I'm thinking it might be a guy that's not in it anymore.
Okay.
But anyway.
But that was so freaky, and they tell you up front you're gonna spend a lot. You're probably gonna spend a lot of money because we have so many books that you're gonna want to buy. But then they start showing you we have places all over the world, and we have ships, and we have buildings, and we have this and that, and I'm like, that's a lot.
Right.
And it's hard to believe that it's only tens of thousands.
Yeah.
You really think that?
Really, yeah. Most of those buildings you see, like, they'll do what they call an ideal org. and they have them all over the place. So they're all over L.A. There's an Ideal Org in my neighborhood in Los Feliz. There's one on the south side of South L.A. There's one in the Valley. There's one in Pasadena I've seen. Just go look in there one day. Just peek your head. Now the one in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, yes, people in there constantly.
There's one on Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood and Vine, and then there's one on Hollywood and like La Brea.
Right.
And then there's Franklin right by UCB, right across from UCB.
Yes, that's the other one I was talking about. Right.
That's the one.
Yes, that's the Celebrity Center across from UCB.
Yeah, Celebrity Center, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and most of the territory, I mean, all that, the LA stuff is like within a few miles of each other. And those people are actually working. Those people are going, I live in that neighborhood too. They're going back and forth from the Gold Base that's out in the desert. That is full of people. But all the other stuff, nobody in there. Yeah. Maybe one person that's manning the place. So I'm like, well, what goes on in here? Nothing. There's books in there.
Weird.
I don't even think that you necessarily go and do the auditing there.
Huh. Well, that'd be good for improv groups to rehearse.
It would be definitely good. And you know what? You probably could get that space.
I mean, come on. They're always looking for spaces.
They're always looking for, yeah.
That's crazy. Well, whatever you have coming out in a year, I hope you'll come back and talk to me about it. Definitely. Let me talk to you a little bit longer, if you can. Is that okay?
Yeah.
SNL. So going back to SNL, did you get to meet Beyonce?
I did. Mm-hmm. Well, that was Destiny's Child back then, so it was, I forgot the name. The name's Michelle, I think was another name. Kelly, yeah. Very nice. And actually, that was the second time I met them. I'd met them a couple of years before that at the Martin Short show. Oh. And that was when they still had the other two members and I remember meeting their mom, Tina Knowles, and she told me that I looked like Usher.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. Were they nice? Did you look at Beyonce and be like, oh?
Really nice.
They didn't have her in Jehovah's Witness.
Crazy because, usually in instances like that, and I remember when I did the Martin Short show, it was, we got a lot of musical acts and a lot of young acts for some reason. So, I mean, like that, at that point in time, it was like Destiny's Child was just starting. We get like LFO and like Funky Ones and stuff like that, So these groups would just come by, and they were usually like kind of bratty, like, when do we get out of here? What is the show? And they were just super nice girls, just really nice. And I remember seeing them. Then after that, and like they become superstars by the time we got to SNL, and it was exactly the same. I said, "Oh hey, I remember you from Martin Short," and Beyonce gave me a hug. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
wow.
You remember me?"
Beyonce. You hugged Beyonce.
Hugged him, yes.
You can't do that in Jehovah's Witness. It worked out pretty well. Jay-Z, how was he? I met him once. He was really cool.
Really quiet when we met him. I remember when he did SNL, me and Tracy we stood and watched him rehearse and stuff. We were the only two like in the cast that were like unreverence and every time we walked by we'd like bow our heads. Hello, Mr. Z, Mr. Z. And he loved it. He'd just be like, hello. But he's a real quiet dude, man. Yeah, really quiet.
Oh man.
So we were like, oh man, we love you, and he's just really shy and like, oh thanks,
How was Tracy Morgan to work with? He's just a guy shot out of a cannon, right?
Yeah, he's a friend. I wish I still could hang with him. I consider him a friend. We became really good friends during that year I was there. We hung out a lot and stuff. He's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get you pregnant. Stuff like that.
Yeah, he left me. He stranded me so many times. He's done this to a lot of people. I know a lot of people have this story, but like nights where I'd be out with him. And at that point, he had this crazy Jaguar car. He would just drive it all over Manhattan, or we drive to.
He likes nice cars. He still drives nice cars.
He's always shopping for nice cars. And at that point, he had a car that he probably couldn't afford. He didn't need to have, and he would. It just happened all the time. We'd be out, and he'd just go, "Okay, man, I gotta go home." And we'd be like in Harlem somewhere. He's like, "I'm gonna drop you off here." I'm like, "What? Wait a minute. I don't know how to get. I'm not from here." Go, just get on the C train. Bye. He just leave me in the middle of the Bronx and Harlem or something.
To just go home.
Just go home because when he got tired, he's just like, "I'm done."
That's funny.
So, well, just can you give me a ride home? No, man, I gotta go this way. So. Just take the train.
You'll be all right.
So I learned, like, if I'm gonna go somewhere with him, go meet him somewhere, but make sure you get your own way home, because he would always do that to you. He'd strand you.
Have you talked to him since this big accident and everything?
I've only talked to him just once since the accident.
Yeah. Is he all right?
He seemed fine to me.
Okay.
Seemed fine to me.
He's doing
well. The same.
Now you worked with my comedy hero, Will Ferrell. Did you guys get along?
Oh yeah, we still cool? do.
Yeah, because you've done like other projects with him. You did like Anchorman.
Did Anchorman? Did Semi-Pro. I've done some other stuff. I guess since then. Yeah, we always get along. He's always good to me. I'm good friends with with Adam McKay, who's his partner.
Oh yeah,
writing partner. And I was I lived in Adam's house when he went to do Saturday Night Live, and I moved to Chicago.
Oh, you did?
I took his apartment over. Gross. So yeah, we've been friends for a long time. So I knew Will before I even got to SNL.
Well, and you went from Detroit, Second City, to Chicago, Second City, but didn't you also do Toronto, Second City?
I did. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing to do all three. Why did you go to Toronto after doing Detroit and Chicago? Just to be like, I have to do them all.
There was a big line waiting to go to main stage in Chicago,
really? Okay.
And it wasn't so much of a line. They wanted some people in Toronto, so I went, I'll go there for a year. And also, I was getting divorced, so it seemed like a good change. Yeah.
How'd you like? I went there a couple years ago for just a visit, and it was pretty cool.
I love Toronto. I mean, I still go back all the time. Yeah. And I grew up in Michigan, so I would go there a lot. Going to Windsor and stuff. Growing up. Yeah. I love Toronto. Did
you work for Michael Moore because you have that Flint connection?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it was a Flint connection, and he was friends with Adam McKay. That's who connected me with him. And then he's like, "Hey, there's this other guy from Flint. You should."
McKay's pretty
him.
Political too.
Yeah, he did some writing for Michael Moore in the early days. Just just for himself. He had a show on Bravo. And then Adam did a little bit of writing for the NBC show. But he had a show on Bravo called The Awful Truth. And I was a correspondent on that one.
Right.
And yeah, he connected us like years before that, and then we just always stay connected online and stuff. It's like whatever's happening in Flint or whatever political stuff,
Yeah.
he wanted to do.
He's making the rounds these days, Michael Moore, because he's got a movie coming out in a few months.
Got another movie coming out. Mm-hmm.
About Trump.
Yes. Trump. I mean, when he was predicting that Trump was going to win, we grew up around the same people. I grew up around those people in Michigan too.
Yeah.
And
did you think Trump was going to win?
I was hoping it was, but I had the same fear that everybody else. And on election day, I knew he was going to win just because I saw who was voting. And also, I had my relatives calling me from Michigan saying who was voting. They're like, okay, everybody out here, like in the sticks, it is lined up. And I'm like, okay, I'm in the middle of the city and there's no lines. And I just came from the barbershop and everybody told me they're not voting. So he's going to win.
God.
And then if you look at Michigan, I mean, even Michigan, just with the weirdo votes that people got, Hillary could have won. Just the weirdo votes.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one like American Party or something that got enough votes that could have made the difference in Michigan alone.
In Utah, there's a Mormon guy that beat Trump and Hillary, I think.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. Was it
I forget his name.
What's his face? So the CIA guy.
Maybe
Evan McMullen.
Maybe I don't remember. It's all a nightmare. It's all a nightmare.
I was gonna say that we criticize the Mormons, and obviously, and there's different types of Mormonism, right? There's the more the crazy culty Mormon, the Warren Jeffs, the fundamentalist LDS church,
okay.
that still does plural marriage and stuff like that. And there's the regular Mormon church, which seems to like whenever they get some pressure about something, they change something. So they're getting a lot of pressure about with these kids now, and hopefully they'll change some of their policies, because one of their policies is this kind of, I don't know what you call it, when you get asked questions by the elders about your sexual history. It's something that Jehovah's Witnesses do too. I had to go through this.
Oh, wow.
Like whenever you confess something, or if you're suspected of some kind of sin, the elders will ask you very, very personal questions about your sexuality. Do you touch yourself? How much do you touch yourself?
Oh my God!
If you got into some situation with somebody, it's like, did you touch her? Did you touch her? Did you ejaculate? Did you touch each other's genitals? Did you, how much did you kiss? Did you use your tongue? Yeah.
So creepy.
And one of the problems they were having is that, if there's a situation of molestation, well, they were asking these same questions of children. When you're not qualified to do that, that should go to an authority who has been trained to be able to do that kind of stuff. And they're also one of the problems they were having with their organization is that if somebody accused somebody of another Jehovah's Witness of molestation or any kind of sexual assault, that person has to have another witness, and they have to bring that witness to the elders. So you imagine a child going like, this grown man did something to me, and now I have to bring another witness to say that, which never happens, right? Nobody ever molests anybody with another witness around. Bring another witness, and you have to do that in front of the other person and say, that person molested me, and here's the court case, and here's the evidence, and I have another witness. So the problem they were having is that, well, children don't do that, and you're trying to handle these things internally in your congregation, and this is something that's best suited for, it's a crime. It's best suited for the authorities and not your internal church thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know how I got off on that, but something that the Mormon Church has considered doing is taking that out of their doctrine, where they're asking young people these sexually
they probably should
explicit questions.
They probably should. When did you?
And they're thinking that might also cause people to want to kill themselves if they're going to get asked about, well, what did you do? What exactly did you do in your sexuality? Yeah,
they're feeling guilty.
You feel guilty. Yeah,
that they did something wrong. I'm not an elder, but can you tell me when you had sex when you lost your virginity? Was it your first wife, or did you do it?
Oh no. Well, that was one of the reasons I got kicked out, and I felt bad, and that's why I tried to kill myself.
What do you mean?
So I had sex.
With like a girlfriend or something, or just
yes, and I had a couple of times like I'd had some close calls, like some heavy petting, what they call it, it's like making out or whatever, some grinding,
sure,
and me, it'd go right to the elders like I did wrong, and so the first time wasn't sex, but enough where I got in trouble, and I got my privileges taken away. So that means I couldn't talk in the Kingdom Hall. I couldn't give talks. I couldn't do public things. Right? People could still talk to me, but there were certain things that I couldn't do. And also, I was doing like I had privileges. I had duties in the congregation. I would do the sound system and take care of some of the maintenance and stuff like that. I wasn't allowed to do things like that when I had sinned. So for me, I had that, and so it just led me to more because I'm like, I like that. I'm depressed. I want some more of that.
Yeah.
And every time I would do it, the couple of times I did it, I would go right to the elders and say, hey, I committed this sin. So the last time I had sex, not even before that night was over, I'm like, well, that's it. My life is over. I might as well go ahead and kill myself. And also,
so sad because sex is so nice.
I know it should
so
be
good, and then you're like, I gotta kill myself.
I know, and it's like I'm having like, and yeah, it's not the way to lose your virginity, folks.
Just lost my virginity. I gotta kill myself.
It shouldn't be like, I did this. Oh man. So that before the night was over, I decided that I was going to die, and part of it was also the theology, because they believe that Armageddon is coming, and anybody that's killed in the end of the world has no hope of ever living. But there will be people who will come. God will bring back to life in this new world. And so I thought, I have a better chance of being brought back to life. God understands that, but I have no chance because I'm a sinner now. And if I'm kicked out, if I'm still in that state when the end comes, and I thought that was going to happen tomorrow, then I have no chance. I'm gonna die. So I thought it's better to kill myself. Also, I thought that is your punishment. I was always taught that the punishment for sin is death. So I'm like, I'll just take my death punishment now, and hopefully God will.
Oof.
He'll bring me back to life because that's what I've learned.
By the way, was she worth it?
No, absolutely not.
She wasn't Beyonce Knowles or anything.
Really, you want to hear this whole story? Of anybody that's listening, you want to hear like the whole story from what happened in that whole night, and even afterwards, because like I grew up also in like I said in the middle of Cracktown, so you know. I'm like, oh, I want to have sex. Well, there's like prostitutes turning tricks in front of my house. Like there was a crack house on each side of me. And there would be, and this is the beginning of crack, before I didn't even know what it was called. Mm-hmm. I knew it was cocaine, but I'm like, I don't know what these people are doing. Yeah. I didn't know you smoked it. Yeah. I didn't know anything. All I knew is that there was something that people wanted so bad that there was a line all the way down to my street going to the house, and it was like a drive-through. Wow. Where cars would just pull up, somebody would come out of the house and serve them. And the prostitutes were turning tricks in the line in the car while they were waiting to come up and get...
That's pretty productive.
Yes, it was just all happening at once. So I'd find used condoms in front. So I'd see like people getting blowjobs and stuff like. And I'm a Jehovah's Witness. I'm like, I didn't even know what that was.
You're witnessing something.
I'm witnessing something. So I'm like, is this
terrible?
Oh my God, you know. So yeah, so I was just thrown to the wolves as far as that stuff goes.
So did you have sex with a prostitute?
I had sex with a crack. No, well,
a crackhead.
Yes, a crackhead, and then by the end of that night, I was friends with probably like 50 crackheads. So yeah, it started out as a wild night where I'm like, okay, I want to have sex, to a night where there were a bunch of people doing crack in a house with me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did they try to get you to smoke?
Oh yeah, I did it. Yeah.
Oh, you did smoke?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. You lost your virginity, you smoked crack, and then you got sued in the window. Oh my God.
I tried to kill myself, all in one night.
That's a
and that's all from like nobody even telling me anything. You know, all I knew was like, this is sinful. And for me, that is what people did. If you weren't a Jehovah's Witness, that's just what you did. I didn't know what people did. It's like that's what you do when you go out, right? That's everybody's. And I didn't even know what it was. You do drugs, right? You drink and do.
You were 17?
19, 20. I might have been 20 by then.
Maybe 20. Yeah. Wow.
And it's the beginning of crack, so nobody even knows what it is. So I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, well, we're smoking this. I'm like, yeah, I want to do drugs. I want to feel good. I want to do what you guys do. I want to be a part of the world.
Did you go back to crack after that?
Never did it again.
Thank God.
Never tried it again. I've done plenty of other drugs. Trust me.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's not like I'm like a teetotaler. I have tried everything.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never had a desire.
So you're not addicted. It doesn't seem like.
No.
You're lucky. I mean, with your background and just like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna go full on into it and just.
A lot of friends that would happen to. Yeah, never. I mean, well, that ended up to be a really traumatic night, so that was probably another reason why, like, I would associate that with, like, I almost died. So, you know, yeah. And then, you know, since then, like, you know, I've done cocaine, I've done every drug in the world, but yeah, I've never had a desire to smoke crack.
That's probably good. That's probably good. Well, you're a dad now. Mm-hmm. How do you approach being a father? Based on your own upbringing? Well,
I mean, just automatically. You know, I used to be really worried about it. And then, you know, after doing some work and after actually really thinking about how I grew up, I thought, there's no way my son's going to grow up like that.
Yeah. What do you mean by work? Do you mean like therapy?
Yeah, therapy. Yeah. You know, and also, like I said, you know, there was a time when I went, man, I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. Like, I wonder how much that affected me. And I hadn't done that since then. You know, hadn't even think about it. done, new life. In the meantime, I'm not talking to my mom, but I have my dad and my stepmom. I have a family, so I haven't talked to my mom in 30 years, and I just like every once in a while will come up. I go, what is going on? Like they still have that rule where they don't talk to people who aren't in the religion, but I didn't know anything about it. And then at one point I got brave enough to go like, what is this thing? What was that thing that I was in, that I grew up in? How did that affect? Is it still affecting me? And then I started to see different ways where I thought, it still affects me. I still have some of the phobias that I grew up with. I grew up with a phobia of anything that was from a secondhand store. And this is a weird thing. Mormons have a little bit of this too, but Jehovah's Witnesses, only a Jehovah's Witness will be able to describe how this feels. But they believe that inanimate objects can be demonized, can be possessed by demons.
Sure, why not?
So I grew up with all kinds of stories of inanimate objects being brought into somebody's house and weird things happening or affecting somebody somehow, like things floating around the house or hearing voices or whatever, and that was the devil or demons bothering you. And I was raised with believing that. I was raised with reading Bible stories about demons actually having sex with people and having babies. That was called the Nephilim. I don't know if you know about that whole Bible story.
No, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to any of the Bible stories they told me. They all sounded crazy. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys are teaching me.
So this is a Bible story. The reason that the flood came, the whole story with the flood.
Yeah, Noah's flood. Did that?
Noah's flood and what's his face? Really
climate
screwed
change.
Yes. Well, what's his face screwed it up in that movie, in the last the Noah movie?
Russell Crowe.
And the director
Darren Aronofsky.
Aaron Aronofsky, right? Who I've met.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you tell him you screwed it up?
Well, I haven't seen him since he did that movie.
Oh, okay.
I've told him other movies I thought he screwed up, though.
He screwed up a couple.
Pie, he had some moments. No, but he had a whole thing on the... he had a whole different take on what actually the Bible story is. So the Bible story was that there were angels that would go back and forth from heaven to earth at one point in time, before the flood. They would go back and forth. And then these angels took on human form and started having sex with women, with human women. And they had these giant creatures, babies, that were called the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were all around the earth ruining it, taking people's food and, just mean giants that were ruling the earth. And so God was like, the earth is ruined. I gotta fucking straighten it out. Yeah. And so he brought a flood. Yeah. He brought a flood and cleaned the Nephilim. That was the reason that the flood came, though, was to clean out these
Did it work?
Ungodly creatures. Yeah, they're gone. You don't see them around, right? There's no giants taking your food, right?
That's crazy.
Unless you consider like LeBron James and like.
Yeah, I do.
Basketball.
No. Are there racial issues in Jehovah's Witness?
That's a good question. No, there aren't in most cults.
Because they'll take whoever they can get.
Take whoever you can get, and that is usually the.
Except for gays, you can't be gay.
Not gay, but that's usually that was what that was the appeal of my mom. That's usually the appeal of most cults, and most people they always say like, well, this is an organization where race doesn't matter. There's all kinds of race, and it's like it was that way in Heaven's Gate, and it was that way in Jim Jones, and it was that way in Waco. And usually churches aren't integrated that much, but usually in groups like that they are.
Wow.
Mormons not so much because they had a rule way back where blacks were cursed and they did away with that rule in the 70s, and so there's a few black Mormons, but they got a ways to go before you can get them.
Yeah. And
the Jehovah's Witnesses, very much so, it's very diverse, and the reason why was that there was a big push in the 70s when my mom got in. There was a push to get minorities in, and it's also that thing that like it's an underground kind of movement, not so much like Scientology where they went after rich people, went after whales, what they call whales. So they purposely went after people who had status. They wanted people who were captains of industry. They wanted actors. They wanted people who were prominent to get people in. Jehovah's Witnesses, on the other hand, go after what they call meek people. So they do try to get people of a lower economic station, and not so much as a strategy, but just because just the culture. Mm-hmm. This is who they are. It's who they've been. And so that goes back to why I don't see them in my neighborhood. And I see them in certain neighborhoods. And here's a funny story. I've lived in my neighborhood for almost 20 years. Never ever seen any Jehovah's Witness. Go across, driving, see them all the time on my way home. See them in the neighborhood that's adjacent to mine. A couple days ago, they were in my neighborhood. I'm like, what? I gotta go say something. So I'm walking my dog, and I go back and try to go get to them. And they only did the block in my neighborhood that it was full of apartment buildings. They didn't go to any of the houses, and they only stayed in those apartment buildings.
They assume they're poor people, probably, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then they left.
Did you try to talk to them?
I did.
What'd you say to them?
Well, I was going to try to, it's hard to get into a discussion with them without them being tipped off.
Sure.
So first of all, like seeing my face, I'm starting to be known as an anti-Jehovah's Witness, so I didn't want them to know me too quickly. I
think there's your face and like their lobbies or something.
Like, oh, look out for this guy, right?
Yeah.
And there are certain people that bother them on the street, some former Jehovah's Witnesses that do stuff, to them. So they are on the lookout for to being harassed. And so you try to just ask them questions, without them being turned off, because they'll run. They'll just be like, nope, no, thank you, no, go away. So there was actually a documentary that had been on a couple nights before that on A&E called Cults and Strange Beliefs, and Jehovah's Witnesses were that thing. So I just went, hey, did you see that? I saw a thing about you. Did you see that thing on A&E?
You said?
Yeah. Right? Because if I go here, what is this thing about your teaching? They'll be clued off and they'll be gone. So, but they just went, nope. And then went through the worst presentation and left me one of the magazines. And I was just left I didn't even, that's it. I didn't get into it with them.
Did you ever have success when you were doing door-to-door? Did you recruit anybody? Mm-hmm. You did? Yeah. Wow.
Most of the people that I recruited, you have very little success just door-to-door. But I was looking for people who had some type of traumatic thing happen in their life, a death in the family, something like that.
Yeah.
Or somebody that was desperate, that was looking for something, that was looking for family. Or to be honest, people who had some kind of disability. Yeah. To be honest, I just knew who would be more likely to be receptive to it. It wasn't like I was actually going for those people, but I would just gravitate to people who were poor.
Yeah, weaker, just overall weaker people.
Yeah, and I didn't think of it that way, but it was really predatory.
Yeah.
And then the people that actually came in were usually a relative of somebody's kid, somebody's son, who like me needed somebody to bring them along, and so I was indoctrinating somebody else's kid to try to get them in. And that was most of the time.
That's crazy. You've had a crazy life, sir.
Thank you.
That is some crazy shit.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I want to write these stories down. I want to get this stuff down. But
yeah. You need a book. Mm-hmm. I mean, a show and movie, that's all fine. But you could do a lot with a book. You can make 2,000 pages if you want to. Or something.
Sure.
Well, I hope you'll do that.
Thank you.
And do an audiobook of it, because I'm mostly an audiobook guy.
Uh-huh.
But I'll let you go now. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me. Next time we'll do some Louis C.K. questions.
Oh.
So every time I do this, people are like, oh, I want to hear this Jehovah's Witness stuff. I'm like, hey, you haven't heard the Louis C.K. question?
Because you did a season of Lucky Louie.
I did.
Do you still talk to him?
No.
Ever since that stuff came out?
I hadn't talked to him that much in the last couple of years. I mean, we were friends, obviously, but I hadn't talked to him a couple of years.
I saw the last time he did stand up.
Really? Where's that at?
Largo.
Oh, was it Largo? Really?
It was a bunch of. I think it was a Patton and Friends.
Was the stuff bubbling up then?
It came out the next day. So
did the article come out?
The next day.
The New York Times article.
Everything came out the next day.
Wow.
And I don't think he's done stand-up since.
No.
I don't think so. I think I saw him do stand-up.
Well, and this is why, and people, somebody should ask me my story, because I was friends with Dana and Julia before.
Yeah.
I was friends with Louis. So for me, when I was working with him, it was always a source of, not uncomfortability, but it was something that we would talk about.
You and Louis?
And Dana and Julia.
All four of you.
I think I may be the only person that has a story with the three of them, because I was aware of all this stuff, but I was only
all right, I have.
Yeah.
All right, can you do it in 10 minutes?
I'll give you a little bit because
I
got to say some of this myself, but hopefully you'll get maybe some juice out of this. But yeah, I mean, you know, so the initial incident.
So let's set this up. So Dana and Julia are comedians, actors, and they're a duo basically.
Yes.
They just do everything together pretty much.
Right.
And they worked for Louis.
It didn't work for Louis. It was actually just happened. You know, comics meeting each other, and they just met at the Aspen Comedy Festival. And then
Louis, they came out in the article that he masturbated in front of them, which I had actually heard about a couple years ago.
Sure,
but I was like, what? That's not. Didn't make
sense.
None of that makes sense to me.
Right?
It just is so strange. I'm like, well, that can't. You know, like Richard Gere put a gerbil up his ass.
Right.
Like that. What do we? And I don't really know Julia and Dana as well as other people. I just met them a couple times, you know, throughout the years, and I haven't seen them in a long time. So I just want to set that up for context.
So and. You know, get in touch with me if you want the deeper story. I'll give the deeper story so much later, but sometime later. But so I knew them.
Come back in 2 hours. Okay, we'll do another 2 hours.
You can mention interest. You get questions you get, and then I'll come back and answer the questions.
All right.
And then also, I never felt comfortable. The reason I never said anything, I never felt comfortable without them talking about it.
Yeah, of course. You don't want to.
But yeah, you know, a lot of people knew, and it wasn't so much like the press had made it out the way it seemed, in that, all these people knew and nobody said anything. It wasn't that way. The way it was it was good that people knew, because otherwise they wouldn't. And that was the way that you kind of took care of it. Like then, it wasn't something that I think anybody considered you go to the police for, but it was something to go like, hey man, this happened. Everybody should know this. You know, everybody should be on guard. So, everybody knew immediately. I mean, like, before any of those guys got back from Austin or from Aspen, it had already gotten back to New York, and everybody within the community knew. Yes.
Wow.
And it wasn't just from them. There were other people that were around that heard the commotion of what was going on, because they were screaming and stuff, right?
Oh my God! Like screaming for help.
Just like, what's going on? You know, like just out of excitement.
Not that they were excited.
The whole thing ended before anybody got to explain anything, or it was just a mass. It was just bad. It's just bad, and it got back to New York, and so everybody within our community knew it. So all the stand-ups and improvisers and people who would have known who was at Aspen Comedy Festival knew. Everybody. Right, but still a rumor. So then, the big problem that started to happen was the professional pressure of them telling that story. Now, I won't go into that. I'm not going to get sued, but there started to be professional pressure to them.
Oh, you mean like to not tell it?
To not tell the story.
Right.
Because for everybody else, it's like fair game. You do something like that, it's fair game. They got a right to be able to tell their story.
Right.
And that would have been enough.
Yeah.
Right?
But Louis is a big star, right?
No.
Is that what you know?
Not then.
Oh, not then. Okay. Right.
No. That was the thing. And that was what I couldn't understand. It was like, just take care of it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you take care of it, but take care of it. You know, whatever. Admit it. Do whatever you got to do.
To Louis or?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I haven't talked to him about it at all. I've only talked to them.
Okay.
Right. And at that point, I hadn't even talked to them. It's gotten back. They're in Chicago. I live in New York, right? So I just hadn't seen them. So, but I'm friends with Louis, and I just hadn't talked to him about it, obviously. Hadn't seen him either. So the first person I get to talk to about it was them. And they tell me, you know, the whole story. And I was like, what? And again, like, you hear the story, and you're like, oh, that's crazy. Like, oh, what exactly happened? This can't be exactly what happened.
And you've done some crazy shit.
Yes.
You've been through a lot of stuff.
Done a lot of crazy stuff.
And you're like, that's fucking weird.
That's really weird, right? Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, they're like, hey, this is freakish. I'm like, well, yes, of course you have the right to tell that story. You should be able to tell it. But they're getting professional pressure, and the pressure is coming like, hey, man, that's embarrassing. Don't tell that story about my client or my whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't tell that story. And nobody else cares. I don't do business, And I didn't see it at that point as it being a professional thing because I'm like, well, we're all just like, at that point, we're all at the same level. None of us are famous.
What year is this? About?
2000, 2001.
Okay, so that's a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's a while ago.
Yeah. What's
I think it's 2002, maybe a little bit later, 2002, somewhere around there. It's the early 2000s, though. It's before I did this, definitely before I did the show. So then that goes by. A few years later, Lou and I are working together, and it comes up.
It does. From him?
No.
Oh.
From me.
Oh, it comes up.
Well, here's how it comes up. We're just we're in a group of people, and at that point in time, Louis, we were kind of friends. We would talk a lot, like late nights. So what do you want to do with your career, or whatever, and stuff like that. We really had a lot of discussions about like what we wanted to do. And Louis is like doing well. He's he's doing stand up and stuff like that at that point.
Show.
Doesn't have his own show.
Oh, I thought like he
no.
Did. Oh, so what were you working with?
This is way before that. We were working together on Cedric the Entertainer show.
Oh, okay. As writers.
Both writers, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, he's doing stand up. He's getting a lot of dates and stuff, but he's still like not well known outside of our circle of friends. Our circle of people. If you were into comedy, you knew who Louis C.K. was.
Yeah.
But if not, he wasn't the household name. He was. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, it came up, and
how'd you bring it up?
It just came up like it was in discussion with a bunch of other people. And it was about rumors. So
there were other people there?
There were other people, but not that particular thing. And the other people there didn't particularly know about this rumor about him. It just kind of like gone like... And well, that was the thing is like, he didn't realize that everybody knew about this. Or maybe he did. But he's like, rumors can really destroy your reputation. I'm like, yeah. I was like, well, there's a rumor about you. And he's like, come here.
Oh.
So we go off, and I'm like...
He brings you to the... away from other people.
He's like, rumors can destroy your career. I'm like, yeah, there's a rumor about... Yeah, I know that rumor. And he's like, well, what's the rumor you know about? I'm like, it's not a rumor. They told me... I know from them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you should know that people know about this. This isn't just like some rumor that's going around. Like, people know exactly what happened. And he admitted it. And I'm like...
What did he say?
He's like... It's true. And I'm like, I know it's true. I talked to them. Steve was kind of like admitting it. It was just a weird conversation where he just admitted it and it just said it's true. And I'm like, that's not what I was looking for. I know it's true because I know the actual person that it happened to. And I know they're not lying.
Yeah.
And I go, you should talk to him. You should say something to him because... The miscommunication is not getting you guys anywhere, and you need to take care of it.
Yeah, apologize.
He's like, I can't do that. And I'm like, why not? He's like, because it can ruin your career. I'm like, you don't have a career at that point.
But apologizing could ruin his career?
It's just acknowledging it. He's like, I can't acknowledge that. I'm like, it's not about you acknowledging it, man. Everybody knows it's not, it is a fact now. It's not about you just being a rumor. He just didn't get it.
Mm.
And so even for years after that, I couldn't understand, like, why isn't he just... So there were a couple of times when I was hanging out with them, and they'd be like, oh, you're hanging out with your fucking gross friend again. And I'm like, I know. And I'm like, I don't know why he just doesn't admit it, because at that point in time, like by the time we were doing Lucky Louie, and between that time and Lucky Louie... Which is
amazing that he hired you for that, since you already had, you made him kind of feel uncomfortable in that situation. You know what I mean? Like,
at some time after this, I was all over. I was like, "Oh, that wasn't why you hired me." I don't think so. I like to have some hope in my own.
No, you're a talented guy.
In my talent, right? But I mean, that's the question I would ask him. Did you hire me just because you thought that I would tell? But even at that point, I thought. He doesn't care if anybody tells. He did that. If he did that in front of somebody, he doesn't really care if somebody knows.
Right.
And I didn't get from that conversation how scared he was of it getting out. Because I knew the other side of it, that it's out.
Yeah, right.
and just wasn't getting into his mentality of he was going like, this is a secret that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And I'm like, everybody knows about this. You might as well. And you're already talking, like in the show, you talked about how much you like to masturbate and stuff like that. I kind of thought he was dealing with it and kind of like showing who he was, so that not necessarily that he was thinking about that incident, but that, okay, that's something that Louis C.K. might do, you know.
Well, maybe it didn't affect him negatively yet because he was still getting work and all that stuff. And if anything, he was getting more and more popular as the years were going on. And
I think he was getting more and more scared. It was like this piano hanging over him. I didn't get that. I was always like, just so even anyway. In the times in between that, the years between that, when I would see Dana and Julia, I kind of like, well, you know, what if he apologized? And they would be like, no, I'm like, okay. I was like, thinking, because I'm like, if he just like, he could take care of this, apologize, get this stuff, because they were feeling the pressure professionally, and that's another thing that he didn't get, and that other people weren't getting. And even me, I would be just like, don't feel that pressure professionally. Fuck that. Do what you want. Do your own thing. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. Now, I've tried to live by that advice, and I don't know how far that advice has gotten me professionally, but it was easy for me to say that to two ladies. Sure. You know, and me going through, and it hasn't helped me out in a lot of ways too. You know, in a lot of ways, I needed to shut my mouth and go ahead and do what I was supposed to do. So, me giving them that advice wasn't the best advice either. Right. But I was always like, man, don't let anybody make you feel bad or make you feel under pressure. Just do what you do. Go out there and do what you do. Obviously, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, especially 15 years ago. You know, like it's a different world now. I feel like, you know, it's so much different.
And that would have been just by being a decent person. And I know he was scared, and it was a horrible thing that he did in front of him. But by being a decent person and trying, because I know he's also a decent person in other ways too. Yeah, that's a horrible thing that he did, but I also know him another way. I know he really genuinely
he's screwed up.
He's screwed up.
He's a screwed up.
He would tell you that he's got some screwed up stuff about him, but he also has some good stuff about him too, and I know that about him. Sure. And I know if he'd have taken that side of it and not been so selfish and said, "Hey, these girls are going through something professionally, you know, personally too, and maybe there's not much you can do about that, you know." I understand that. I can't do anything. I did something horrible to them. How can I ever repair that? Okay, I understand that. But at least you know that they are trying to make a living, and they didn't deserve to have this thing come up. It's just like, and I've had this happen to me, if somebody in the business that you admire and you may want to work with looks at you differently and wants to have a relationship with, and wants to have a sexual relationship. It's happened to me. Yeah. So, you know, somebody that I wanted to work with, this meeting is a date, and now we're...
With a man or a woman?
Man. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Women too. It's happened with It's happened with women too. I had that uncomfortable feeling of, we're meeting for work. And not only it's a casting couch, but they had not even like it's a nefarious, you know, like they just had a different idea of the meeting than I did. Wow. They were thinking about it romantically, and I was thinking about it all work. Wow. Now it's uncomfortable because all I wanted to do was work, and they want this, and now I gotta like refuse them on that end, but still try to work with. It's just not gonna work. It's uncomfortable.
That's where this podcast is going, by the way. At the end, I make a move. Well, geez, that's crazy. I have to let you go because my next guest will be here.
Oh, yes.
Although, let me see. He may have just texted me. Let me see. Maybe I do have time. Let me see something real quick.
I gotta go too. My wife was.
You gotta go. Okay. My wife's gonna kill me. We'll just wrap it up. Jerry Minor, thank you so much.
I definitely will be back.
Please be back because this is fascinating. You're a fascinating person, and I took multiple pages of notes, and I only got to like 1 or 2 pages of it. So
got a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah, it'd be great to talk more with you next time. And you know, if your mysterious project comes out, I definitely would like to hear more about that.
I'll let you know.
Do you want to plug anything before I let you go?
I need more Instagram followers. Jerry_minor.com.
Okay.
That didn't bother me, but now I'm like, hey, man.
Are you verified?
No, I'm not. I didn't even know what that was until last week.
That'll help.
It's like, wait a minute, what is this verification? I am like so out of the game.
You are.
I had a lot of friends on Facebook. That was the only thing I did for years. And then like last year I started doing I got tired of Facebook after the election.
Yeah, right.
And I want to do something else. And I'm like, I'm just behind the game because I'm so stupid about technology.
Were you watching people on your Facebook feed? Obviously, Trump haters, but were you also seeing supporters and stuff too?
I mean, I tell people, like, when you have a lot of Facebook friends, it's different from Instagram. I had to get off just because of, not because of just that, and also people that I genuinely knew, seeing them go over to Trump, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And when you have like 5,000 friends,
yeah,
you see a lot of people doing it. Yeah. Where like a lot of people might not have seen anybody. I see a lot of people, I know exactly what they were saying. And another thing is the death. I can't log on to Facebook without seeing a death. Either somebody's dad dying, them dying.
Yeah.
Like you know a lot of people, you really get this sense of, oh yeah, no, people die.
Yeah.
It's really sad. And I don't have that much empathy to go around where I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
You have your own problem.
Yeah.
That's tough. Well, hey, all right, go follow him on Instagram.
Thanks, Elijah.
That's all you can find him on. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time.
All right.
And scene. There you go, folks. That was my talk with the great Jerry Minor. Thank you so much, Jerry, for coming in. It was really good talking with you. I can't wait for our next talk. I'm sure there'll be another 2-hour conversation. So go check out Jerry online, and once again, check me out online on Twitter at EJ Scott and at EJ Podcast, Instagram EJ Scott 1106, my website ejscott.com, Running Blind documentary on iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. And subscribe to my podcast on iHeartRadio or iTunes. Please go write a review and rate it. That would be a big help. And check out my past podcasts. Don't miss any of my future ones. I got a lot of good ones coming up. And that'll do it for now, folks. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.